So I really appreciate everybody who was on. I'm gonna share screen in here. So these brave souls that came out in the cold, I really debated it. You know, I don't know about you, but really what worries me is if my car breaks down. I mean, who wants to be on the side of the road in this kind of weather? But luckily my car was, I was like, okay, little car, please be good, please be good. And it was, but you see other cars on the side of the road and you're like, oh, it didn't go so well for them. Okay, so I want to know, everybody that's online and in the classroom, how many of you have done a CMA? Okay, I see a couple of you. Okay, yay, yay. Okay, so here's the thing. Do you feel like you got it? Do you feel like you know how to do it? No. Well, and that's why I wanted to do this class today, is because learning how to do CMAs, it's not a science, it's a skill. I wish it was a science because that'd make it so much easier. Okay, I'm going to send this to the printer again. Yeah, I don't know why it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. So let me hear from a couple of you who have done CMAs. Tell me what it was like. What did you struggle with? What was hard? Connor, share with me about your experience in creating CMAs.
Sure. I think if it's in a neighborhood with like houses, it can be easier. But if it's like a property that's really unique, it's really hard to, or I felt it was very hard to find comps and try and compare it. So yeah, that's just kind of from my experience working with
Yeah.
CMAs.
Who else? Who else? Amy, what about you? How did you feel about, I don't think it's printing. I'm going to send it to you, Megan.
Yeah, we were talking about this last night during Wednesday Night Warriors, this offer challenge home, just the difficulties with, because like Connor said, it's a unique property. So it makes it very difficult. There's two structures on the home or on the property, two homes on the property, which is not the norm for the area at all. And they're, in rough shape. So it's hard, you don't count them as two single dwelling homes. So we were talking about, well, okay, do you count it as a 5-bedroom when it's really a 3 and a 2-bedroom? One's 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but then we talked about doing square footage, just the uniqueness of it is challenging. And, so it's not just apples to apples. I can see where in a cookie cutter neighborhood, maybe where it's like they're all built and they have very similar designs and things like that. But I would say the norm is probably more that it is a challenge, and that's where we have to really practice this.
I know. Here's the thing. You all have taken the MLS class. Has everybody taken the MLS class? Not yet. It's required of you, actually. So you'll have to do that. They showed you the easy way. They showed you some easy examples to do CMAs. So I thought that I just plug in the information and boom, bam, I've got great comps. Oh my gosh, it's much more manual than that. And I'm going to show you some of the programs. There's a lot of different, I hope you're starting to get curious about MLS and digging into all the different features they have, because they buy programs from third parties like RPR, Realist, Cloud CMA. All of those are third party add-ons to our MLS. And so what that means is these all do, some of them do very similar things, but you really need to know what's out there because they can help you in crafting a CMA. But I will always caution you is this: if you use any of the programs that pull comps for you, You need to do your own CMA, just a straight CMA in MLS yourself. Because I find that like RPR, I like the format, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to show you the format of RPR. I like the format of the cloud CMA, but I don't like how it pulls comps. So I don't let it, I'll see what it pulls, but 9 times out of 10, I don't think it's done a good job. So I'm always validating what it pulls to make certain I agree with it. So that's one thing to know right off the bat, because I've seen some agents just plug in the information. Oh yeah, RPR, this is what it came up with. And I'm like, but so as we get into this, I'm going to share screen so we can all be looking at the slides together. Okay. The share screen thing, that feature could go a lot faster in my book.
Always.
So fun.
Especially when you're reading.
Yes. Well, and it's like, you gotta step, and then it's got this pause. I want to just like boom, boom, and it doesn't do that. But hey, I am grateful that it can do what it does. It's just, I would like it to be. I know, me too. So when I'm presenting, I'm going to present here. See if we can get this presenter view. Yep, that's what I want. Present. Now, those of you online, but I do have a favor to ask, because I'm going to change screens and show you some things off away from the PowerPoint. Will you let me know if it is not, see, it's not supposed to do that. You guys aren't supposed to see my notes. You're not supposed to see my notes, so I'm not sure how to, hold on a second. All right. I'll just do, is it printing?
I did a 20 page. Working on it. It's trying to work.
Okay.
So yeah, there's
Okay.
something in
Well.
there here.
I know most of this anyway, so I'm not going to worry about it, but let's do the percent again. I want it to be, and I'll be honest, I don't often I created this in Canva instead of PowerPoint because Canva's prettier.
Yeah.
PowerPoint hasn't updated their templates in like 20 years. And while I'm more familiar with it, I think this looks a lot nicer. Well, there,
And look more.
I don't want to see my notes. So how do I do this? Okay. I'm sorry, guys. Please, we're just gonna do percent. I'm just gonna do full screen because you know what? Dang this.
We're gonna walk through the process like on the actual. Like on the computer.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is first I'm gonna take you through this overview of CMA and everything that you need to know and do. And like I said, this is a learning process. So what is the most important thing when you're going to go list a home to get it sold? Say it a little louder.
To know the price you want to sell it at.
The price. Our pricing strategy is the most important thing that we do for a seller. Thus, this shouldn't be a 10-minute exercise. And doing a CMA. Actually, for every one of my listings, I spent several hours on my CMA. Because the best way I can describe it, it is very much like peeling back the layers of an onion. And I start with the whole onion in the beginning, and we'll get down to that. And then I start manually peeling it back until I get to where I think I've got a good comps. Okay. And I've always got to be thinking of what is an appraiser going to pull. And we're going to talk about the rule of three that appraisers follow. It's kind of their baseline, their ideal that they follow. So we're going to talk about that. So let's talk about understanding a CMA first. And here's another thing I'll tell you. Don't ask consumers, would you like a CMA? That's our code talk. That's our lingo. It's not their lingo. Would you like a market analysis of your home? Would you like a neighborhood evaluation? That type of thing. But it's a comparative market analysis. And it estimates a property's market value by comparing it to similar recently sold and currently listed properties. And I'm going to tell you that currently listed is not the strongest indicator. The solds are. The solds are the most valuable information that we have.
It's final.
It's final. When something is under, oh, I didn't. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. So, that's where you need to know that if something is active, that's a wish price of the seller. Wish price of the seller. Under contract, either show for backup or pending means we have no idea what the actual sales price is until it closes. It could be over list, it could be under list, we don't know. So if we're going to do evaluations and pricing strategies, we have to be very careful in using those, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's crucial for us as listing agents to determine the right price. Here, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, it is not one price. It is the rare agent that has any business saying to a seller, we need to list at 250. You need to give a range. Because guess what happens? What happens if it doesn't sell for 250? Because you said that was the list price. Does that make sense? So it depends. This is where it's going to drive you a little crazy because I can't give you hard fast. I can't give you strict parameters because a lot of times we're moving a little bit over here. We're moving a little bit over here. We're pulling a little from here. That's where it's kind of like crafting. Not really creating, it's crafting a CMA is what I should call this class. And it helps buyer's agent advise clients on competitive offers. The thing is you don't just do CMAs for sellers. You should be doing one every time your buyer is making an offer on a property. Because what you need to show them is the current market value in that neighborhood, where are they buying? Are they buying low? Are they buying the average? Are they buying high for the neighborhood? Do you think it's ever a good idea to buy or pay the most and highest price in a neighborhood? It isn't. Unless you're going to stay there for a very long time. And time takes care of that because of equity, building equity and the value increasing. But if someone is buying the most expensive, but you didn't know it because you didn't do a CMA, you just did a down and dirty. I actually look for both a listing and for buyers. I go back. I actually in a subdivision will look to see what's the highest sold house ever in that neighborhood. Ever. I'll go back just 3 months, ever in that neighborhood. Because that also kind of shows me how this neighborhood is kind of evolved. The neighborhood I picked for our example today is one I haven't done a CMA on in a long time, and I used to use it as my example all the time. And I was surprised at the values. I was like, whoa, I was and wasn't. It was like, wow, okay. These are, most of them are over 100, over 300,000. Wow, okay. And this is something they really didn't teach you in your licensing classes, did they? No, you're not taught that.
You learned about.
And what we're trying to do is find similar properties, and we're trying to find an apple to an apple. Actually, I am ideally trying to find a granny apple to a granny apple. Because a granny apple to a Jonathan may be different. And Amy nailed it when Amy said, if the properties are similar, then it would be easier. So keep this in mind. The older the neighborhood, the harder your comps are going to be. Because think about it. Think about like Waldo, even Prairie Village. Prairie Village is probably a better example. We have $1 million homes, and then we have those original little ranches that have a tiny, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 1-car garage. Teeny tiny. Yeah,
Living next door, like right now.
yeah. So that, think about, oh, I'm pulling comps where they've had tear downs on the street. What am I going to do? So remember, the older the neighborhood, the more changes in a neighborhood from their original homes. New construction is your easiest. Because if it's 5 years or less, then there were probably 3 or 4 models. Unless it was a custom build subdivision, but let's say it wasn't. They had maybe 4 to 5 different models, and that's all that's in that area. And not much has been, oh, sure, some of the people might have done some upgrades during that time, but not massive upgrades. Make sense? Like there wasn't a room addition. You go into Prairie Village and it can have a whole additional family room on the back of it, or they could have built up and taken that attic space and made that into bedrooms. So that's where your challenge is. So just know that the older the neighborhood, the harder this is going to be. And that's where I want you all thinking it is so essential that you take the time to do this and practice it. One of the very, very best exercises you can do and show value at the same time is in your database, start looking for people in your database who own homes that you can do CMAs. And say, hey, I'm new. I thought it'd be fun to just practice doing a comparative market analysis. And I picked your neighborhood and I wanted to share it with you. I thought you might find the information interesting. If this is something you would find of value and would like monthly or quarterly, let me know. Perfect way to show value to your database and to get you starting to understand. It's kind of like painting a picture to tell a story. That's what a CMA to me is. It's to be able to tell a story, either to tell a story to a buyer or tell a story to a seller of their neighborhood and what's been going on. And so I'm always trying to figure out what's going on. There are times in the market, not in a seller's market like we're in, but if we were in a buyer's market, I'd really be looking at the canceled and expireds. Because usually there's a higher number of those because when it's a buyer's market, the houses are on the market longer and they actually do expire. They may not sell in the 6 months that they had that listing agreement with that first agent. Actually, when I was a new agent, it was kind of a joke. Sometimes you wanted to be the second agent on a listing because the first go around, the seller wasn't being reasonable and an agent would take it and the price wasn't right. It'd sit. And then after 6 months, then the seller was ready to listen to somebody, but they weren't going to listen to the first agent, even though the first agent probably worked really hard in explaining why we should be adjusting the price. So there used to be kind of a inside agent joke of, yeah, I'd rather be on that one. No, I want to be the second agent. I don't want to be the first because they're not going to listen and we're just going to hang out.
It's rough.
It's rough. It's rough, but that's why we've got to know these things. And so let's get into it. Let's get into it some more. Okay, so one of the things we do is a thorough research is the key to an accurate CMA. That's why I said it's the layers of an onion. I'm going to start out, and you're going to start with public records, and that is what MLS has ties to. Please, please, please know this. The data in MLS on a listing, that information is only as accurate as the agent who entered that information. You get that?
Photos, like before, like I was looking up, the leads, you know, they're been on the MLS, and then all of the picture, and I know personally, I've done her landscaping in the backyard and did them at all in the backyard from the pictures, and I was like, well, I've been doing that for years now. So it's just very interesting to see that it was, you know, completely different from what the actual house was like now.
Oh, yeah. So you can see some historical pictures on there. So where we have to go also is to the public records, and that is where these third parties that MLS contracts with that you have access to, like Realist, RPR, CoreLogic is tied to our MLS. You're going to look at taxes. You can see the tax information. Realist is one of the places, Realist Tax, where you can see what that is. And then you're going to look at past sales. Okay. And then you're going to gather the detailed information on the subject property and make sure that you know everything about that property, because remember, what's on the MLS may or may not be correct. What is the most common thing that's incorrect on MLS and in the tax records?
Square footage of the house or something?
And why? What square footage?
What is square footage?
No. What would make it different than the tax records? What's happened to that house?
The basement.
Added on room or?
Added on a room or finished a basement. And if they didn't pull permits, the county knows nothing about that. And it is not reflected whatsoever in the tax records. It's common, guys. Very, very common. Don't get your panties in a bind if you go show a house and make an offer and go, no permits were pulled.
Penalty for that or something?
There can be, it depends on the jurisdiction, but it is so common, Whitney. That's why we do inspections. Because even if permits were pulled, doesn't mean it was all done perfect. Because code, they do miss things, right? So it's ideal if permits were pulled, but I don't want you being shocked and appalled that there weren't, because it is, people finish their basements themselves all the time. Like in my jurisdiction, even if I have a plumber switch out my water heater, I've got to pull a permit. Because it's a safety issue, okay? So that's not the same in all jurisdictions, but many of them. So that's where you're gonna see some differences, and you've got to keep that in mind. So even the tax records are not always 100% accurate. And that's why you've got to know all these little things, because as you start digging in and diving into this data, you might think some of it is, oh yeah, I can rely on this. Well, some of you want to verify. Another pet peeve of mine is when someone takes a listing, they go into when it was sold last, and they literally copy all the information and data from the past listing, and then they verify nothing. It's your job to verify. Because remember, what did I say? How good is the data in MLS? As good as the agent who put it in. And while some are great, there are some that are sloppy as heck. Okay, and then you're going to view the property photos, because data is not enough. Like when we start talking about square footage, it's an element I look at, but square footage should never be what you solely base your pricing on. And why do you think that is? Yeah, upgrades, there can be huge differences. A house can have all the same square footage, but one can be finished to the nines and one can be as rough and beat up as can be. So condition is gonna make a huge difference. And so square footage, I always look at it. I always see what it's telling me, but it is when I'm factoring in for my pricing strategy, it's one of the lower factors that I consider. Does that make sense? Now, there are some markets across the United States that they focus more on the square footage when they're pricing properties. So you may get clients who are more familiar with that and they'll be asking, well, what's the dollar per square foot? What's the dollar per square foot? So it's an indicator, but I wouldn't use it as a definer. Does that make sense? So I'm actually looking at all pieces of information and digesting it as I'm coming up with the CMA. But then I'm a research nerd. So it's always kind of like a good challenge for me. Like, oh, what can I find? What can I find? I want to find more. I want to find the story of the house. So, because this is going to be the foundation and you need to become an expert on this neighborhood and this property in a short period of time, because usually we don't have like weeks to research it, do we? And that's why practicing is going to help you, because I'm not kidding when I say I labored on the pricing in my CMA because I knew how important it was to the success of selling a house. And so for me, it was probably the most stressful part of listing homes was coming up with that pricing strategy. So I probably spent more time than the average agent, but I felt like I looked at all the data and did my research. I'm going to go visit any of the active listings in person, not pictures. Has anybody been surprised between the pictures and then the real life house? Yeah, you guys have. I know last month's contracts challenge was one of those houses, wasn't it? The pictures didn't look that bad. It didn't.
Nice upgrade.
And then you got in there and that was a different story. Yeah, so much so. So that's where you've got to be looking at all of this. Any questions on gathering the data? Okay, like I said, it's Douglas.
Let's say you put in the MLS, doing CMA everything, and the agent before didn't put everything in there. But now you're involved. Can you put it in there?
Not after the fact. You can do it for a CMA. So some of the CMA programs allow you to make adjustments to what is already in there. So if you know something is different than what it's pulling up from the records, then you can put in those differences.
In CMA?
Yeah. You can't change someone else's listing information. You can only, if it becomes your listing, then you can put in the new verified information. So here are the things that are important in looking at this. Location. Got to be in the same neighborhood. And we try to stay in the same subdivision. However, if a subdivision has less than 200 houses, you might have to go outside of that subdivision because there's not been enough turnover to give you any comps. Does that make sense? But first, you're gonna start in the whole subdivision. So when I first run a CMA, I'm not doing any details. I'm not even doing, I'm doing, that subdivision. And I'm going, one of the things, remember what I do is I go back and look at all-time solds. It's one of the first things I pull. What's the most expensive? Yep, I gotta see that. Cause I want that in my mind. And then I'm going to do 180 days, but I'm not gonna do same bedroom, same bath, same style of house yet. Not yet. Because I've got to see how has this neighborhood been performing? If I only stay with the houses that are just like mine, I'm not getting the full picture of that subdivision. Does that make sense? So I don't start getting really finite with my search yet, because I need some big picture information and perspective. Because that'll give you a better perspective. Like if I see, like I was telling you all in a buyer's market, I would be looking for expireds and canceleds. If I see that houses aren't selling very quickly in this neighborhood, and that they're expiring and canceling, or they have really high days on market, and it's not just one house, it's a lot of houses, then I'm gonna be like, what's the deal? For whatever reason, this isn't a highly desirable place for buyers. I'll tell you, I found that in certain parts of Lee Summit. Lee Summit has some nice housing, but for some reason, they have a tendency to have higher days on market, even though they've got nice housing stock. And so that's curious to me, Douglas.
You don't think it's because of the price is too high, let's say.
No, it's consistently been something that I've found in many parts of Lee Summit.
Do you think that'll sustain like that with prices rising? And I feel like it's a more affordable option if you're open to going outside of like this little.
Well, and that's the thing. That's where I just went back to location. What's most desirable in a buyer's eyes? For whatever reason, Lee Summit doesn't pull the same way as maybe Johnson County does. Is it the schools? Could be, but they have decent schools. Is it the commute?
That's fine.
It's further out.
Like perception too, or like certain areas around here, like kind of indicate a certain lifestyle.
Location is a huge thing, a huge thing, especially in valuations. I can find a cute little Cape Cod in Prairie Village, and I can find a cute little Cape Cod in Raytown. What are my values going to look like? And they're both, I would say some of the Raytown houses are better built than some of the Prairie Village houses. Just saying.
Twice as much.
Yeah.
Value.
So again, can you see how location is going to determine, oh, okay. And that's why practicing CMAs is so valuable for you, because you're going to be surprised about the values of some neighborhoods. You're not, it's going to be like, what? Or why not? And you're going to see that. So that location, the school district, how old is the house? How old is the neighborhood? What are the amenities around it? These are things that really drive value. Square footage, total versus livable. Remember, it's not going to record, what you're gonna see is livable square footage, not the entire square footage of a home. Livable. And remember, there are converted garages. Go in Prairie Village, there are converted garages. Yeah, Douglas?
Is there anything such as like, let's say, a twin neighborhood, like this neighborhood is in this section, and then you cross over and it's a different name, but it's.
Can be. But you're not gonna know until you start doing it. So what you need to know is, especially in some of the older neighborhoods, like you can go into some of the older neighborhoods and a subdivision will still have the same builders and developer right next door. Or you go out south and you can have this price point and then you can have a high price point right next to it. So usually the older neighborhoods may have more similar properties more widely around it. Not 100%, but usually, whereas you go out to more of suburbia, what we call suburbia now, you're gonna see differences right next to each other. And that's where it gets hard. Oh my gosh, because you're like, how far do I jump to find something? Because I can't find something in my area. Bedrooms and bathrooms, the type and number. So that's going to make a difference. Bathrooms have value, but they're not as significant, especially like a half bath or something like that. And here's where this is going to drive you all crazy. You're going to want to know, well, what's the dollar amount of an extra bedroom? I don't know. It depends, right? It'll start to show you, it should. If there is, like your subject property is a 5-bedroom, and then you see four-bedroom houses sold.
Everything else the same.
So you're gonna, but then again, it depends on finish and condition.
Like if the kitchen is like a customized kitchen that's like brand new and like very specific to what their needs are, or if it's just a standard kitchen.
Yeah, again, you're looking for an apple to an apple. So I'm gonna tell you, the first couple times you're gonna do CMAs, you're gonna have too broad of a range of houses. They're not gonna be apples to apples. And that's where you've got to start thinking apple to apple, and then it dwindles it down. You're like, oh, I hardly have anything. Special features, fireplaces, landscaping, those things that are upgrades. Condition, great, good, decent, poor. And then property taxes and HOAs. How's that factor in? Yeah, oh, condition of the house, all of those things. So can you see how this starts to get hard? There are very few twin properties out there, especially in the older houses. There aren't. You're going to walk into houses that their floor plans have been totally changed. And then you're going to walk into houses that's the original floor plan. You're going to be thinking, sometimes you're going to think, what were they thinking? What were they thinking? Does this work? I don't think it does. So this is, can you see all the factors you have to look at and chew on? Is everybody on Zoom doing okay? Because you guys are really quiet. Really quiet. Okay.
Where?
I wanted to see you. Okay, art of selection. Let's look at this. We're going to focus on the recently sold properties, 3 to 6 months ideally. Do you know what's been hard in the last couple of years? Is that a month can make a difference in the market. So going back through 6 months, maybe you were in a totally different market, a totally different time. So you've got to be, that's where you all as new don't really know that yet. And that's why doing these CMAs and practicing this, just like practicing contracts, is essential, because you're not going to build that knowledge until you start getting in there and start digging. So while I would love to tell you most of the time, 3 months is where I'm going to start when I start getting particular. But if that gets me only one sold, then I'm going to have to start inching out. I don't jump, I inch. So I wouldn't go from 3 months to 6 months. I go 3 months. And then if I couldn't find enough, I go 4 months. I go 5 months. I go 6 months. And if I get to 6 months, then I think, oh, I've got to widen my area. Because I'm not even getting anything at 6 months. And after 6 months, then I'm worried, what kind of market were we in? Was it even close?
I feel like homes don't go up for sale super often in that area.
One just went up today, actually, and out of curiosity, like, if I were in-
Yeah, so you would have to see, are there any similar areas within 3 to 5 miles? Especially 3 miles, if you can find a similar neighborhood within 3 miles of that one, that's what I'd be looking for. And West Riding, you might, yeah, yep, yeah, you might be able to find similar neighborhoods.
Yeah, maybe like,
Well, town and yeah,
it'd be a little bit less.
yeah, 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 oh, it gets tricky. Remember, I'm gonna look at active listings to see what sellers are wishing for. And then I'm gonna look at pending and show for backups, and then I'm also going to look, did they have any price adjustments? Okay, again, that does not tell me what it's gonna sell for, it just gives me an idea, because you can start seeing trends of what buyers are drawn to in a price point. And sometimes it's pretty obvious. Your subject property can stand out. If you're in Southern Johnson County and in a lot of areas, especially the more affluent areas, if you don't have a finished basement, you're odd man out. I mean, it's almost, yeah, yeah, you just loser. But that's what you've got to keep in mind is when I'm looking at CMAs, I'm looking to see, is my house special in any way, good or bad? Because special can be good, that I stand out, my condition, I have great amenities, it's been upgraded, it's awesome. But then I gotta make sure my price isn't so awesome that people are gonna go, well, I don't wanna be the most expensive house. Yeah, this is great. But many buyers will not do that. And many buyers agents won't advise that. That won't be their counsel, is to buy,
The neighborhood's not gonna come up, meet them.
unless they're gonna stay there like 10, 20 years. And some people don't care, but it's our job to educate them about that. And so I'm also looking, is my house an exception in that special? I mean, do I have a floor plan nobody else has? I had buyers who wanted to buy a house in a subdivision of 2 stories. And their house was like one of 2, and it was a pretty big subdivision, maybe 400 or 500 houses. There was only, and they were interested in a reverse story and a half, and they were only one of 2. So guess what that neighborhood attracts? Families. Reverse story and a half is normally not a family house. So when we went to go buy that house, I counseled them and said, one of the things you have to be aware of is when you sell this house, one, they bought high because she loved the house. After they had made 3 offers, like lowball offers on other properties. But when the wife loved it, then we paid top dollar. I said, please promise me you will live here a long time. And I'm proud to say they're still in that house. And I had to say, you have to be aware that you're an exception. So you may not, it may be harder to draw the buyer for this floor plan because everything around you is not that. You see how I'm looking at this? And put in the pieces. It's like a puzzle. If you like being a researcher or detective, this is pretty fun. And then I'm looking at MLS map tools because I want to see where we are to everybody else. Okay. And then I'm hoping to narrow it down to 5 to 6 strong comps, but I will tell you, if you can get 3, you're really lucky. 5 or 6, I think, is kind of dreaming. Unless you're in a newer subdivision. I would love to tell you that's easy to find those 5 or 6. Is it, Megan? No. You'll be thrilled with 3. And I also ideally want other actives in there or maybe pendings. And that may or may not be the case, especially right now. So that's what I'm looking at, is that 3 to 6 month. Now, there's something while we're looking at the artist selection, I'm going to share with you, and I don't have this in the materials or on the PowerPoint, so you're going to need to write this down. I'm going to give you the rule of 3 for appraisers. The rule of 3 is, I want it to be within, I actually fudge on this one, 3 to 5 years younger or older than the subject property. I want it within 3 miles of the subject property as my maximum. Within 3 miles. I want it 300 square feet, smaller or bigger than the subject property.
Like way big, obviously, go 300 feet down, 300 feet up.
300 square feet, what now?
Smaller or
Small.
bigger than
You're
the,
gonna have it.
Yeah.
Then that range, very similar size.
now that's what they try, the parameters they try to stay within. Doesn't mean they always do, because sometimes they have to go out. Can I tell you that sometimes you will have an exception property that you can find no comps for? And if that occurs, I want you to know, we can't make stuff up. I would then be recommending to my seller that we hire an appraiser to give us some baseline. So you might, especially with rural properties, you just never know. You could have a rural property that is special. I mean, it's an exception. It's not a little farmhouse. It's not barn dominium. It's like, who knows? Well, give you an example. It was before COVID. I don't know how long ago it was. There was a house that looked like a Western town. A listing. Yeah, looked like a Western town. All that facade of it. That's an exception property, right?
Right town?
No, it was out on acreage. Outside.
All in on that.
Oh, yeah, they went country all the way. They went Western all the way. It was really cool. I thought it was really fun.
That's for like a niche.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
So-
Keep it.
don't feel like, and this is where you have to be saying to the seller in advance. Because if you'll know if it's an exception property right away. And if it is, the conversation I would be having with that seller would be this is, I'm going to do my research and coming up with a pricing strategy. Because your house is, you got to find the right word, exceptional or special or whatever. It may be the case that you're going to have to pay to have an appraiser give us a baseline value. Because we have to have something, because a buyer's agent is going to say, how'd you come up with that price? Oh, we liked it. Oh, it happens. It happens. But, does that make sense? So don't feel like this might be where the newness might get in your head and thinking, I should be able to find comps. There are sometimes you cannot find comps. You can't. And that might then be a reason to get an appraiser to come out and appraise that house. It's not a guarantee that's what a buyer will pay for, but at least you've got an expert speaking to the value of that home. Does that make sense? So I don't want you to have that pressure and stress that, oh, what do I do? Now, when you're newer, I will tell you that a lot of times on your MLS search, you're getting way too specific. Guys, it is not Google. It is not intuitive. It is not intuitive. Matter of fact, it's to your disadvantage if you put in fenced yard and all these little details. Because again, unless an agent marked that it was a fenced yard, may or may not have one.
You're missing all those other possible properties that would be a better comp.
So that's where you do, I remember when I was new, I was putting every little detail into my search, every little detail, and I'd come up with goose egg. And I'd be like, there have to be houses out there like this. And then I'd do it again, goose egg. And I'd be like, what? Because I went to that MLS class and they made it look, John made it look so easy that I should be able to find my comps just like that, right? No. Don't get too specific. I know that's a pain because then you have to do more manual going through every single listing. And sometimes the pictures are going to be what tells you the information and not the data on the page.
Find a picture of that backyard and see if you can find a fence around. You go, oh, this one is a good comp. Does have a fence. You have to really go through each listing and look at it.
Yeah. So it's not the put it in, press the button, boom. It's not.
It's investigating, like you said, researching.
It is.
Spreadsheet or do you?
Oh, I'm doing it in MLS and we'll go there and, yeah, no, great question.
Things off.
So let's talk about making adjustments. Now, this is where, and I'm gonna minimize my Zoom people. Making adjustments are necessary when comps aren't perfect matches. Account for differences in features, bedrooms, bath, garage. Yeah, what's the difference in a garage in a value? Well, depending on the neighborhood and depending what kind of garage that would be, like, in some neighborhoods, how much would it cost to build a freestanding detached garage? Because you're gonna find that in older neighborhoods, like some Waldo, some Brookside, some East Side. You're gonna find where detached garages they don't exist anymore because they rotted and fell down. And nobody replaced them, but everybody else on the block has a garage. So how does that change the value of a home? Because it doesn't have a garage. And that's where, again, I wish I could tell you a garage is this much. I can only tell you that after I've done the research to see what they sold for when they didn't have a garage. If I can find something similar, remember, find something similar that gives me a baseline. It's kind of also like busy streets. Floodplains. Those houses will sell for less than houses not on a busy street, on an interior street, or not in a floodplain. So you're going to have to do the research to see the difference in that neighborhood of what busy streets, and it's usually also foreclosure houses. So it used to be a rule of thumb of all three of those categories would usually be about 20 to 30% difference in price than the house not in the floodplain, not on the busy street. Make sense? So you got to think of that too. So again, that goes back to location, doesn't it? Does it back up to commercial? If you're in Brookside or Waldo, or the East Side, that's probably really common. There you're backing up to some commercial. Not so much in Johnson County, right? You have to explain your adjustments and rationale clearly to clients, and then you have to empower clients to draw their own conclusions. Where do I have it? It's in one of my power tools. Oh, it's in my ready to work with a seller. There's a link to a video by Kevin Ward. I love Kevin Ward. Go on his YouTube channel. He is blunt, real about real estate. And he doesn't gloss it up. He is a former KW coach and agent. Now he has his own coaching company in California, but he tells it like it is. I just shake my head and I'm like, oh, you're just talking silliness. He's real, and he does a explanation of a CMA to a client, to a seller. And it's brilliant. absolutely brilliant. It's not a polished video at all. But here's the thing we do wrong as real estate agents with comps. What we do wrong is we tell sellers the differences. We tell sellers what's wrong with their house. We tell them the price it needs to be. In his listing presentation and going on the comps, he literally has them saying what the differences are on the comps. So the house number one right here. So Megan, this house, yours has 2,400 square feet. How much does that house have?
That's 3,000. Oh,
And
it's a lot bigger than mine, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes the seller start thinking.
They've got to be saying it out loud instead of us telling them. And if you don't make them part of that, many of them will not listen to you. And they will not believe your pricing strategy and what you're sharing with them. It's not a guarantee, but is one of the most artful, smart ways to get the seller to be part of this process. Trends and price rate, again, we have to look at the market. Are we in a seller's market, buyer's market, what's going on? That's why David's monthly market update that he shares with you all, I hope those graphs are not just going, making your eyes gloss over. You need to spend time on them. You need to understand it because that's what you're supposed to be as an expert in the market. What's going on with local construction? What happens if you have a house that either your buyer's wanting to buy or especially your seller's wanting to sell in a subdivision where there's still new construction going on? Dang. As a listing agent, I hated those. Like, dang. We're competing one block over with houses where the buyer can pay maybe 10,000 more and pick out their own light fixtures, faucets, paint, all of that, and it be brand spanking new. So my challenge was always, how can I show them the value of buying the resale house over going the next block over and buying new construction? Hard to do. But if we had plantation shutters on all the windows, that's thousands of dollars. If we had done upgrades, that could have evened out the price.
Your beautiful landscape that you're calling that 5 years worth to develop, so now most of it.
And you added more than the obligatory builder one tree in the yard and 2 bushes, 1 tree and 2 bushes. That's about all you're gonna get. But the resale house was beautifully landscaped. Can you see that? Oh boy. Use market reports, support your findings, provide realistic price range, conservative, moderate, aggressive, and explain how you came to that range. Here's an example of that range, and it's different. Conservative for a buyer is aggressive for a seller. So you've got to think, aggressive for a buyer is paying more. Aggressive for a seller is pricing it for less to get a buyer quicker. Make sense? I think this is a great visual. So that's where you've got to be thinking, and that's why I want to range, especially with the seller, because I want to show them, well, it depends on your motivation. But I'm going to have an aggressive price. I won't call it that, but I'll have, well, you have to find another word than aggressive. Aggressive, a moderate, a medium or average, or
That would be aggressive.
competitive. I like that. That much better. Competitive at market range, or the other would be greedy? No. Pricing it over the market.
Yeah. Well.
Hopeful, the hopeful price.
Price is not.
Yeah, well, but they don't know that. They don't listen to us. I know, we do, but do they? Okay. making it look good. So there are different formats, and that's what we're gonna go to here in just a minute. We're gonna go to formats. You can go on Etsy and get templates there, but there are probably 4 or 5 different formats that you can get just on MLS.
And I like the first.
Yeah, that's from,
Yeah, they're, yeah.
No, this one is from MLS. This is RPR, which is one of the,
RPR has a nice presentation.
this is an Etsy, going on Etsy or doing Canva or something like that.
I
Okay.
think the benefit of using the RPR or the cloud CMA already on MLS is you're already there, the data's all pulled in, and then you can go make the presentation personalized without having to go through the added step of working in Canva.
Gotcha.
It's just already there.
It's all.
And they do a nice job on the presentation, in my opinion.
So I'm gonna take you out of the PowerPoint and we're gonna go into MLS. Let's go, let's go, let's go. If you are, if you've got your computer, get your computer and log into MLS.
Kristen, can I ask you a question while you're switching over to that?
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that we can, offer, I'm just trying to think of like practical ways I could get really good.
I'm sorry, Amy, I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think of like ways I could get practical experience in this, but be like as accurate as possible. And I'm wondering if it would make sense to like team up with an agent and say, hey, do you have a property coming open in the next month? Could I do my own CMA and then we could review like what you came up with, what you're actually pricing at, and I could show you what I came up with and maybe you could give me some feedback. So it's something that's like literally coming on the market and we could get some feedback on like how far off, I was, and some
Well,
experience in explaining how I landed with that. Do you think that's something that we could ask?
we can do that together. Here's what I'm gonna tell you, Amy,
Yeah.
is I wish I could say you can go to any experienced agent and they're good at pulling comps.
Yeah.
They're not.
Okay.
Many
So
of
it's
them
best to
are.
just pick one and then have you review with us or like our coach.
Yes, and then
Okay.
you could show it to an agent, but here's what I will tell you. Because I get this a lot from my growth clients. They'll say, what do you think of my comps? And I say, well, send me, or no, they'll send me a house. I'm getting ready to list this house.
Mhm.
What do you think the price should be? I said, I don't know. I don't know. Share your comps with me. And then I'm going to pull my own comps. And here's the thing, and this is what I want you doing for Tuesday, because we'll practice it again on Tuesday, but I want you all doing, I'm gonna give you a property, it's gonna be the subject property that we're working on today, and I want you all to do your own comps.
Okay.
We'll all come up with different comps.
You'll come up with different comps.
Yeah.
Depending on how you look.
So it depends on your parameters. Just one little parameter can make a difference. So we can all come up with different comps, and same with experienced agents.
Yeah. Okay. So you're going to give us some properties and then we'll come back on Tuesday and kind of,
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
give
like
you one property and then I want you to pick one on your own.
okay.
And I want you to explain why you pick those properties. And again, you're gonna find there's sometimes not a right or a wrong. It's just a different perspective. And sometimes it's like, oh no, that you were thinking that was an apple? We're talking orange. But that's why you have to practice this, because I wish I could say and look at your comps immediately and say, oh yeah, those are good, but I'm gonna have to pull my own because I know how I do it. But not everybody does it the way I do it. I know, I wish this was a science and it's not. Okay, so I'm gonna go into search. I'm gonna go into residential quick. And tell me if it doesn't go with you on Zoom. Are we on the search screen?
Yeah,
So it's like residential and you click on it and go over. If we look below that, it just says residential quick already, like, is it just a duplicate button?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we're gonna do the subdivision Knoll Hills. Knoll Hills. So I'm gonna go down here to subdivision, which is about in the middle of the page. So there's a reason I picked Knoll Hills a lot. It's because it's one of the biggest subdivisions in Kansas City, in Johnson County, has over 1,000 houses in the subdivision. That's big. I think it's 1,300 houses are in the Knoll Hills subdivision. So I know, remember, what did I say is the minimum that you can have in a subdivision? 200. 200, if it's under 200 in a subdivision, then you're gonna know, I'm probably gonna have a really hard time getting comps. There's just not enough houses to have enough turnover. Because turnover is about 10, well, I don't even know what it was for 2024. In 2023, the turnover was 4%. Meaning only 4% of the homes were going on the market on average.
My shop is only one for sale right now in all Hills.
Well, no, I haven't clicked yet. So I've got, yes, one active. So I'm up here, but she's looking down here. It's gonna give you a preview down here. Yeah. So I'm gonna do show for backup. I'm gonna do pending. I'm gonna do sold. Now, there are times that I'm gonna look at other things. I'm gonna look, if I'm looking for a buyer, then I'm gonna look at pre-MLS. And I'm gonna look under contingent. Why would I look under those two for a buyer?
Content.
So pre-MLS, what's that mean? Yeah, it's a coming soon. They're actually gonna be changing the category to coming soon. MLS is gonna talk like we talk. I just saw that post this week. So there could be an incoming listing that could be good for my buyer. And I could actually have conversations with the listing agent, even if I can't go see it, to kind of get a little bit more info, maybe. Why would I look at contingent? And I bet most of you aren't. Why would I do that?
If somebody's actively trying to sell it,
What's the contingent status mean? It's under contract, but what does that mean?
well, that's what I'm saying, somebody's trying to, they gotta sell their home.
The contingent buyer? Gotcha. So what that means is that contingent buyer is vulnerable. That contingent buyer can be kicked out of the contract if a solid non-contingent buyer comes in and the contingent buyer cannot remove their contingency within whatever time frame it is in the contract. So they're taking a risk that nobody else is gonna love that house and kick them out. You know, on every listing that I had that we accepted a contingent buyer, that buyer got kicked out. They couldn't get under contract. It means they are not under contract on their current home. It might not even be on the market. Some people are crazy enough to do that. You'll have that buyer, seller. You will. We've all experienced it. It's their risk tolerance and they don't, some people are more worried about where am I gonna live than selling their house. It's just a harder road to go, especially in a seller's market. Does that make sense? So I'm gonna click these and look what it's telling me down here. It's telling me, oh, 30 matches.
What's the numbers next to the sold, the 0 to 180?
That's how many days back we're going.
Oh.
Great question. We're going back 180 days. So I'm just going to their default and I'm like 30. That's too many. But I might look at it because in 180 days, that kind of gives me a snapshot. Remember, this is a huge subdivision. So let's just go ahead and hit results. So there's one active, one backup, 3 pending. So there's activity in this neighborhood. Okay, that's what I'm looking for, activity in this neighborhood. And then if I go to the solds, I'm gonna actually I'm gonna know that almost all of these here, you can click on and sort. Not all of them, but most of them. So I'm gonna sort by price and look for the highest price sold. Highest price sold. And I didn't, remember you can expand your search up here. There's only 25 to the page. I can go to 100 for the page and I get all 30. So if I go, wow. Of the solds, the highest was 510. Look at what backup is 550 and 575. In Noel Hills, 575.
I'm telling you, it's just crazy what's happened the last 4 years.
Because this one lives in that
I
area.
live in that area. Our prices have gone up, they've doubled.
That's nice.
But that's crazy. Because it actually, before the pandemic, was kind of a depressed area of homes.
Place to move into.
Yeah, and some of the houses were not in such good shape.
It's a, a good sized home for $300,000.
Wow, okay, okay, okay. But that, again, does the backup and the pending tell me what the actual sales price is? No, no, it does not. So, but I'm looking there. So I'm gonna go back to my criteria down here. I'm gonna go back here because I'm gonna make some adjustments. You see how I start big? Now we're gonna start inching in.
Close to our own subject.
Okay, so our subject house is the active. Let me, it is, the address that you're gonna do your comps on is 9606 Woodson. That is the active, the one active listing on here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go down to 90 days. Let's see what 90 gets me. 90 gets me 11. Oh, I like that better than 30. Okay, can you see that? It's giving me a preview of how many matches. I'm always looking there before I click on the results. Looking down here, tells me right there. See that? Yeah, bottom left corner, it's telling me down here. I'll put my cursor right down there on the bottom left hand. So I'm gonna hit results. I'm gonna do by status. So how many solds does that get me? That gets me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 solds. Okay, but I haven't thrown anything out. I haven't done my apple to apple yet, have I? So for me, I'm gonna do a CMA, just one for me. To see, so I can start doing my sorting. Okay, and then I'm probably gonna go into each page and look even further, but this gives me a snapshot. So I want you to look at this blue bar down at the bottom, this blue bar, you're gonna see it says CMA, it says quick CMA, and it says cloud CMA. Those are 3 choices right there. Now, if I want just a quick, then I love this, the quick.
You have to click them first.
Yeah, thank you. You have to click, everybody. Nope,
Well, you can click the.
I'm doing everybody. Oh, wait. I know, it's talking back to me. Okay. Don't nag me. Quick
Now,
CMA.
once you highlight listings, then it activates the ribbon at the bottom.
Yep. So quick CMA. Not gonna give me pictures, nothing. It's just gonna give me numbers.
Draw that. I use this one at first all the time just because it gives me a snapshot where I can look at Chris's one.
Okay, so it's gonna tell me also in each of the categories, the active, pending, show for backup, and then we'll go to sold, what the minimum, maximum, average, and medium is. Okay? So I can see, these houses are all about the same age. Let's go to the solds. Okay. And I've got my 6 solds. I can see, so there's a total list, and then it's gonna give me the averages for all of it. Okay? So I can start seeing some really great things on here. I can start seeing, oh, we've got 2 4-bedrooms, 1 5, 1 3. My bathrooms, square footage, whoa, whoa. How much is our subject property?
Go back up to the top, please. I don't remember,
Yeah,
but it's the listing at the top.
this active one, what's the square footage on this one?
So it's a smaller one.
Okay, okay, okay. And so I thought I was good with just the 6. I might be going back out to the 180 days. See where we're going?
Yeah.
So it's gonna feel like you're going back and forth and back and
Having
forth,
similar in that part.
back and forth.
That guy's double the size.
Yeah.
We only
So-
have one that's similar.
I've got to remember the rule of 3,
In 300 square feet.
bigger or
It's
smaller.
bigger or smaller, so there's only one in that listing that has 18.
40,
Totally different.
yeah, 1845. So that's where maybe I shrunk down too fast. So maybe I should go back and let's go, I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna go back to criteria. I'm gonna go back to 180 days, and then I'm just gonna do solds right now.
So how do you go back to them, not listed?
If you just go to the bottom, there's criteria and then.
Click on criteria. No. That's a good question. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my 30 matches, and let's just do right now, because I already know what my show for backup and actives are, all of that.
You took out that off too.
Yeah, I'm just going for sold. And I went to 180 days. So that got me 25. Okay? See that down here, Douglas, 25.
Right.
Okay? So let's go there. Let's do, let me choose everyone. Let's do the quick CMA. And we will continue this on Tuesday because we're digging this deep. Okay? Let's get our hands dirty. So now I can start going into, look at all these solds, look at all these, yeah, 18, 17, 1,400 square feet, 1,900 square feet, 1,450 square feet. So what's interesting is this is one of the smaller houses, the active. You see that? You being a detective? So that's how I'm gonna start. And then, so I've got that, I'm going to then back to my criteria. Yep. You find my square footage. I'll probably have to go to detail.
No, not multifamily, just residential detail.
Above grade, yep, there it is.
Oh, above grade is drainage square footage.
So I'm gonna put finished square footage. So ours is 1,524. So I need to go to 1,200 and
1,200 to
1,800.
1,800 or 1,900, yeah.
Oh, you can put a regular in?
And you should, in theory, we're gonna see what it works.
Oh, look, 6.
Yeah, if you look at that,
Well, you gotta celebrate because sometimes you're gonna get goose eggs.
Yeah.
You're like, dang it.
sometimes you plug it in for that data and it just sits there. The MLS is particular. So,
If you do not put it in MLS exactly how it's in there,
yeah, it won't work.
it
for you.
will not pull it.
Yeah, you just have to keep trying. We're gonna make it work. Here.
So I've got 6. Whoop, whoop. Okay, that makes me feel better. Right? So, and look, our subject property is priced at, it came on the market, oh my God, it came on the market at 575. The highest price that anything's ever sold in that subdivision, and it's one of the smallest houses. What?
They didn't listen to anybody.
Crazy talk. And now they're at 474,950. 474,950. Wow. The highest of that square footage is 471. Highest sold. Okay, what? So then I'm gonna go in here and start seeing my apples to apples. Then I would go back to my criteria, guys. I would do this and I would put my active in there.
Then you are gonna be able to compare it.
It's the only active one.
Yeah, coincidentally, yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So then if I do. If I do, we're not gonna do a quick CMA, we're gonna do just the MLS CMA. And this is what most agents use. Don't be most agents. I use it for my own building of a CMA. And then I'm gonna use something prettier, and that's what we're gonna work on next week. We're gonna do Tuesday and Thursday on CMAs. Okay? Yeah, I'll show you.
All of the.
I selected all of the houses. Oh, so. Once I go on to that, I can't just exit back. No, it's okay. Did you know there's a little box up here in the upper right-hand corner that says recent searches?
I like that.
Hi Kathy, are you here for Mastermind? It'll be over on the other side. You are so welcome. So if I go to recent searches, it already saves what I did. So here's what I did, Whitney. I clicked everything.
Yeah.
And then I went down here to CMA.
Just CMA, okay. perfect.
Just this is the MLS CMA right down here. Everybody online see that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I did. That's where I am. Yep, that's where we are. That's where you should be. You didn't go astray, Ashley, you're good. So if you're preparing this for someone, then you're gonna put their name in there. You can put a description that this is for Knoll Hills, whatever. You don't have to. And then you get to select pages. So I want you going in here because, oh, wait a minute, my URL is old. No, it's not. Hold on.
URL is old, that's mean.
Well, it's because I opened it up in another window. So that's, it punished me. I was punished by MLS. So here on these little plus signs, open those up. Open up the little plus signs next to the. I'm not-
Things you can choose to include.
Mhm.
And then it's allowing you to put in the different.
Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Is you're going to have to play with this because some of these things, like some of these static pieces are just information pieces. You may or may not want them. I always want the map. But many of these selections up here under comparables, right here, they're just different formats. They can be the exact same information, just in different formats. So you're not going to click and show us all of them. But in the beginning, which ones do you use, Megan?
Scroll back up to the top, please, just so I can show them how this works. For you guys on Zoom, you're gonna need to go click on cover. And then you're gonna see it pop up in the selected page part.
If you want all of that.
If you want it, that's what your client's gonna see, what's showing in the selected page. If you don't want that, you unclick it and it's not gonna appear in your report.
Yeah, so what I do is I just go on to the each individual thing and do that. So I'm gonna do a cover sheet with
I like
a
cover
summary.
sheet because it's got your name on it and the subject property title, so they know it's tied to that house.
price adjustments. Now, this is, like I said, under the comparables is where many of them are basically the same thing, just in different formats. And you're gonna have to decide which information you find the most valuable. So let's just click on all of them. I know we're at 11:01, but we'll just see how it's putting this stuff in there. It's like putting it in my cart.
I think you could put all of it over just like the
I can, but I'm usually not doing that.
Gotcha.
I'm usually picking a couple of those, but not all of those. So, I'm not gonna choose any of the other things. I can go in there and make some adjustments. I'll show you what adjustments look like so that you know. Come on, get off of our. Adjustments can be where I know something's different. Remember what you said, some information is different. So I can say, if I know it has another bedroom than what it is, or something is different, it doesn't let me do much adjustments there. But I'm just gonna go to finish. Cause this isn't my product that I'm sending to anybody, this is my research. And then, okay, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on View CMA, and you can email it to yourself too. I'm just gonna view it. And then I want you all going through especially all those selections and comparable pages and see all the variety. Because there's some that have a little bit of a detail that I like better than another one. On how you present it. Again, here's what I'll tell you though. I do all my research in here, but in the past, I always used RPR as my presentation piece because it's prettier. And most agents use this as their presentation piece, the MLS version of the CMA, and I don't want to be like everybody else, right?
This is the
That's
least,
me.
this is the least pretty of the packages. It's just very comprehensive.
Oh, cool, it's like other houses, pictures.
Yep. So I can get the down and dirty, just numbers, the comparable prices, the low, medium, average, high, account. I can get the adjusted. Then I can go in here and then it starts showing me. Now, I didn't pick the subject property. I meant to do that. That's one of the selections on that bar up there.
Just. right?
No, I'm on the last. I'm on the last of that bar.
Finish.
Finish.
Yeah.
Click
I'm
finish.
there and then.
Then view CMA. View CMA. Yeah. So my bad, I didn't do the subject property cause there's on that bar before you hit finish. So it would have put that in there. But it put it in there, but it didn't highlight it. So here is our subject property. I just didn't click on there to make it that. And when you click on subject on that bar, then you're putting in the address and then it'll put it there. Okay. So I'm going through all of this. I can make adjustments if I want. Meaning, putting the price up or down. You probably won't do that yet.
If they're like not a photo property and we're going to look at properties that are comparables, we take a picture and add it in there somehow.
No,
Okay.
you can't add to someone else's listing ever.
Oh, no, just in the CMA.
You can upload a picture for the subject property, but not on the other properties. So again, here's just some down and dirty numbers that help me understand the ranges in the properties that I'm looking at.
Like what range is.
Yeah.
We're gonna compare these properties, the ones on the low end and the high end, so you can see what the quality of those homes were. And now I need you to help me, you need to tell me where you think your home falls in here.
Exactly. So here's the thing, you are gonna leave some sold out. I will tell you though, if someone lives in a neighborhood, they know the houses that have sold recently. So if you are leaving some properties out of your CMA because they're not an apple to an apple, I would acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I would say, now there are a couple of houses I didn't include in here. And let me tell you which ones they were. Your neighbors 1 block over, because they had 1,500 more square feet than you, they weren't an apple to an apple. Does that make sense? So I want to acknowledge that I did see other properties because they know their neighbor sold high Because remember, I think that's what's happened here. They saw a house for 575 in their neighborhood, this active, and they took it. They liked my price too. Their house wasn't even close. None of the comps, yeah. So I'm going to acknowledge, because I found out the hard way on a listing appointment, I excluded some properties and I didn't speak to them, and they got all like, why are you not showing us those properties? They sold for a higher price. So I had to be proactive and say, here's why I didn't include them. Make sense? And then again, days on market, there's different graphs. This could be, depending on the story you want to tell, will depend on the additional visuals that you use. Make sense? Again, this is very similar. One of the things I like is this will give me an average of days on market. And then one of them gives me percent of list price to sales price to list price. I think it's the pro report that does that. And I love that because that's a conversation. See how these are very similar? They're just doing it in different formats.
Need to figure out which one would be like the most based on the situation and preferences.
Usually you'll find the ones that you like the most. That's what you'll lean towards almost every time. But like on this pro report, I don't like the comps, the comps that they use up there, the pictures and because it's not a side by side. But I like when I get down in here, I like some of this information and this one. Let me show you this one before we wrap up. This is what I like. Sales price to list price. So it's showing me that most of the houses actually sold for more than the list price. So that helps me in having a conversation with a seller that, you know,
Lower than what they're asking anyway.
yeah. So, but we still need to be careful on price to be competitive.
You don't wanna overprice it because they only sold by 1% more than that.
Yeah,
they-
so it's like, don't, you wanna tell them to not get excited if this is not.
They're basically selling for
But-
this price when you're listing.
But if I'm seeing everything selling, like at a buyer's market, I'm gonna see everything selling less than list price. Then I'm gonna have to say to a seller, then in a buyer's market, I have a different conversation with the seller. I give a list price and a sales price. Range. I never give a price.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, here's where I think we should list, and here's where we'll probably sell. Based on what we've been seeing buyers doing.
And you can let them know like the market, like how long things set up the market based on their value to make like the sale price versus the.
And if we wanted to be competitive, then we need to go to this percentage and not to the listing percentage. Make sense?
Yeah.
Does this help you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's your homework. Everybody. I know, look at all these peeps on here. Look, and it even goes to page 2. Yay. Okay, so everybody, here's your homework. You're gonna prepare for Tuesday comps on this property at 9606 Woodson Street, Overland Park, Kansas. And I'll post it on GroupMe and I'll post it on the Facebook page. Okay?
Can you repeat the address again?
Certainly, Keanu. It's 9606 Woodson Street, Overland Park, Kansas. Okay, is everybody up to the challenge?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think you'll find it fascinating at the comps that you all will come up with. Okay, have them ready on Tuesday and be ready to explain why you chose the comps that you did. And I want to hear what the challenges were. Okay, because I have a feeling seeing this property, you're gonna have some challenges.
So
But-
you can go view it, right?
The active, yes, you can. That would be a great thing to go do. All right, you guys. Sorry to hold you over, and I will see you on Tuesday. All right? Bye, Zoomers.